Hello Zoology Kingdom, and welcome back to a brand new Zoology King Nature YouTube video. And today's video is about, guess. Last video was birds. The video before that was birds. Today's video is going to be about birds, but not just looking at birds today. No, I'm sick of looking at birds. Today we will be talking and learning about birds with some visuals just to help you look at birds. Alright, enough talking about birds. So, before we talk about winter turning into spring and how birds are coming back from migration, especially around here, we're starting to get more birds. We first have to talk about a comment. It's on the screen right now, and it says, somebody Zoos or somebody Z-U-E-Z says, like, you can fight a bear with your machete. Machete, bear, let's see. Moving on. So before we start talking about why birds migrate and you first have to talk about which birds migrate and which birds stay through the winter. So the birds that stay through the winter are like what you've seen inside the video that we had. They are birds such as cardinals, goldfinches, other types of finches, and things like the junico. And there's a lot more birds that stay through the winter, and specifically the birds that stay through the winter are the birds that don't have the diet of like other animals such as insects that they would find in the ground or on branches or whatever, because they are currently hibernating in a stage of hibernation. That's a topic for a different video, but their food is gone, so they have to, so the birds that stay will stay because their food is still easy to get, like seeds. We have bird feeders at my house and backyard, so the birds will come to our yard like you saw in the video, and the live bird video, and they will eat stuff from our backyard, and they are completely fine. But the birds that have to leave, which are the birds who migrate, these guys have to eat things from the ground, such as the robin, which will eat worms, and you can't get to worms if there's just a ton of snow in the way. And also, birds that will leave are things like woodpeckers, because the trees are really hard, so they can't really get through into the trees. And geese also, because they like to feed in the water. Water is frozen. There's no way that the geese are going to get in the water through winter. And now we'll move on to why they migrate. Contrary to some belief, birds actually don't migrate because they are cold. That may be part of the reason, but birds, like us, are warm-blooded. That means they produce their own heat within their own body. Things like reptiles and insects and invertebrates are not warm-blooded, so they have to hibernate throughout the winter to stay warm. Once again, video for another day, another time, and I don't feel like talking about that and making the video an hour long. But birds, on the other hand, migrate for food, and we talked about this a little bit in the other video, because geese will migrate because they're one of the main migrators. They will migrate because they can't get into the water, which is where they feed, because there's so much ice. Things like robins will migrate because their food is in the ground and the ground is full of snow, but they don't migrate in big flocks like geese do, and we have footage of a big flock of geese moving right now, and we showed this actually inside the geese video. We showed this inside a different video on Zoology King, but we'll show it again because it's a pretty cool video right now. And then another species of animal that leaves is woodpeckers, because the trees are frozen over and they're really hard, and there's most likely not going to be insects living in there, at least living insects, so they can't get through there to get to the insects and animals living. So, and the birds that stay through the winter stay here because it's a dangerous flight to get to the south. So if it's just for warmth and not just to stay alive, then they're probably not going to do it. Instead, they'll just stay here where we're at, in the place that they're already living, and just live off of the seeds that they can find, because most of the birds that stay around here are actually birds that will eat seeds, such as the cardinal. And we have bird feeders out there, which you may have seen inside our 2 live bird videos, and they can live off that, and in the wild they can just live off berries or anything that'll grow inside the wild. So they don't need to fly, and they don't, because it's such a hard journey, because there's lots of predators that could attack them. There's such as eagles and whatnot, and there's also some harsh weather that they could be having to fly through. If you think walking through hard weather would be hard, then I can't imagine even flying through. Like a tornado or so, it must be bad for them. So that's why birds would like to stay around here, and then the birds have to make their way back, and it's just really hard for birds to migrate. So if the birds can stay, they will. If they can't, then they have to go. And now we're going to move on to birds coming back already, and some footage of that happening. So in Wisconsin, it's April now, April 2nd, as I am making this video, and the snow is just starting to melt. This is not good for animals such as the robin returning from their migration, because once they return, it's going to be hard to get through the snow to get to the worms. And geese also will have a hard time, as they still can't get through the ice unless it's really thin ice. Even then, it's going to be incredibly cold in there for them. As for the birds that we've seen before on the last 2 videos with the bird cams and such, they're still fine. As long as we keep the bird feeder full, they won't have to work a day of their lives. But as for the birds returning from migration, it's not that simple and not very easy, and it's going to be pretty hard for them, as it seems that this year the early bird does not get the worm. I came up with that. You can use it if you want. And now a moment of silence for this poor woodpecker right now, because they have returned from migration too early and it's still snowing. Wait a minute, there's suet. The woodpecker's eating the suet. It's not starving. Well, that was my outro planned. Goodbye.